I had been neglecting My Spy because it looked like a film that I would really enjoy. And to be honest, I was scared to watch it because I was worried that it would disappoint me. So instead, I just didn't bother. But after reading quite a few good things about it, I decided to finally take the plunge. And I'm pleased to say that while it wasn't perfect, I did really enjoy it. This was released in 2020, directed by Peter Segal, written by Erich Hoeber and John Hoeber, and we have Chloe Coleman in the role of Sophie and Dave Bautista as JJ. And Sophie is a little girl, and actually, I'm not going to go into too much detail about why she has a spy. I'll explain it briefly, but I went in not really knowing why he was looking after this 9-year-old, and that worked well for me because it meant I was invested in finding out more about the narrative from the get go. But basically, he has a surveillance on Sophie and her mother, and obviously he ends up meeting Sophie, and he becomes quite prominent in her life and her mother's life. He plays a very important role because Sophie's trying to fit in with a new school. She's being bullied to some degree. She's feeling a bit like an outcast, and JJ comes along and unintentionally helps her to begin with. But he goes on this really interesting character journey as he spends time with her, and he opens up and begins to learn more about himself, and we begin to learn more about him. Because he is, to begin with, this tall, well built, I mean, he's well built throughout it, but he's this well built, closed book. He is a CIA agent, and he is like a closed book. You can't get anything out of him. It's like getting blood from a stone. He has a deadpan expression a lot of the time. But as he spends time with Sophie, we get to learn a bit more about him, and he begins to soften a little bit. And as we dig deeper into his character, he becomes more and more fascinating. And all that's done without neglecting the mission that he has with this surveillance. But I think the attention, I think they got the balance right. They didn't completely neglect that, but the attention does shift towards JJ as a person rather than JJ as the CIA operative. Sophie is obviously on a very interesting journey herself, and I think it's something a lot of people can relate to, a lot of children can relate to if you've ever been the new kid at school, or if you've moved around a lot, or even if you've just felt like an outsider. She definitely represents that individual. And I think she's got this wonderful attitude, and she's brilliantly performed. Chloe Coleman is fantastic in the role. And the chemistry she has on screen, Sophie with JJ, is just brilliant to watch and so fun. I have to say, I also love Kristen Schaal. I loved her in 30 Rock. She was in 30 Rock, and I absolutely loved her in that. But her character in this is even better. She plays Bobbi, JJ's partner, CIA partner, and she's just fabulous. She's often the butt of humour, but she's also very quick to give back as well. And I just found the delivery of her lines to be particularly fabulous. Towards the end, her character continues that humour. She's often the source of comedy when the action takes over, because it does. The action ebbs and flows, but obviously, as it kind of crescendos, the action gets a little bit more intense, but she's still bringing in a lot of the comedy. And I think it gets the balance quite well. Ken Jeong as well is entertaining. I've only ever seen him in comedies, and obviously this is a comedy, but the character he plays is not really the source of humour that much. It's quite weird. Nothing wrong with it, of course. It's just different to the kind of role I used to see him in. Usually he's the source of comedy, whereas here the comedy kind of orbits around him. I enjoyed him in this, of course. It's just very different. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was well directed. The characters were brilliant, very well very well developed, very interesting. JJ and Sophie, it was important that they worked well on screen, considering they are in the bulk of this. And they did. They definitely did. Also, the dog, absolutely adorable. I love the dog. There's little Jack Russell in this, and he is so beautiful. I'm not sure if IMDb credits the dog at all. I'm actually just checking this while I'm doing this at the same time. It credits a lot of tapas dancers, so they've got quite a lot of information there. I can't at a glance see what the dog is called, but it's definitely worth. If anybody knows that, please tell me, because I'm always interested to see. It never occurs to me that often that when a dog is in a film, they've probably been used in other films too, because they are actors, and they're, if they're good in one film, they're probably going to be used in other films. Well, that's just an aside. My Spy, as I said, I wasn't sure about because I thought it would be good, but only if it was done well. But thankfully, I thought it was done very well. If you've been hesitant to watch it, or if you've never even considered watching it, definitely consider giving it a go. I think it's pretty entertaining.